Hello, and welcome to episode 8. Yes, you heard that right. 8 of The Right Reasons.
We're super happy to have you here. We're going to go into hometown dates, kind of get into what happened in last night's episode. Yeah. What last night's episode was something.
It was, I have, each season I'm reminded the hometown dates is like simultaneously one of my least favorite episodes, but also one of the most enlightening episodes.
Yeah.
So I have such mixed feelings about it because I love getting a glimpse into the women's homes and their families and kind of how their parents deal with the whole like, I'm skeptical of the like every time there's, some skepticism and they're uncomfortable with the cameras. And I love seeing that aspect. But this one in particular, it just felt, while I did feel that Colton was present at each one, it did feel very rehearsed. Like even the way, and we'll get into the whole asking the dad thing because I have a lot to say about that. But even the way that he asked the dads about the permission,
it's formulaic
/ blessing.
Yeah.
Felt scripted. Like he said the same thing to all 4 dads.
Well, that's not true. He said very different things to 2 out of the 4 dads.
No.
Well, 1 out of the 4. One got we'll get into it.
Yeah, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, well that's always been a complaint about Colton in general, is that he comes off very polished, he comes off like he's rehearsed, and I don't know if he rehearses it. Like, if he actually does, that's like a whole other thing. I think the dude just comes off really polished. And
no,
I think
agree.
he thinks about what he's going to say before he says it.
Which is a positive thing.
Maybe we'd all do a little bit better if we were to do that. But I don't know. To me, this episode felt like a day off and then also more work than usual.
Right, that's
to
what
take
I
notes
mean.
on. Like, part of me is like, hey, there's no cocktail party. I don't really need to worry about like taking notes on who's fighting with each other. All the drama's pretty much out now. It's all it's now to the top 4 girls, and we're going to their hometowns, and the drama is mostly subsided. So I was like, yay, night off. I can just kind of watch and enjoy myself. But then the fact that each hometown, like, it felt like more work each time because they were so similar to the previous hometown. Each one felt like a slightly different like version of the previous city. And same thing with the conversations, and it's like, oh, are you the same thing as before? Yeah. Oh, okay. And it just felt, by the end of it, I was done.
Yeah, and I don't typically feel that way with The Bachelor. I could watch the show for like 15 hours and it could just go. Like,
and
when
I've seen
people
you do that, actually.
I know when people complain when there's like 3-hour nights, I'm like, no, it's great as long as there's no viewing party bullshit. But when it's just actual Bachelor stuff or Bachelorette or Bachelor in Paradise, I'm all about it. This one, when it was over, I was like, whew.
Yeah, I was happy to be done. I was like, all right.
So before we get into recapping each of the dates and talking about kind of the, on this show, we really try to look at things through not only recapping, but looking at it through the lens of healthy relationships and communication and mental health and sexuality and all that stuff. But before we get into recapping and looking at it through those lenses, I just want to like pick favorite and least favorite hometown dates.
Oh, okay. Well,
so Kyle, what was your favorite hometown date and why? And again, we'll get into the details after. Got it.
Well, so it's my favorite and then why, but then details later. Oh, like the recap later.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. My favorite hometown was Huntington Beach with Cassie.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because they went surfing, which is something you commonly do in Huntington Beach. Colton has not surfed a lot, and he looked dumb while doing it, and that's awesome. I think we can all relate with that. If you ever taken a surfing lesson,
that's what it looks like.
That's exactly what it looks like. You just fall in the water a lot, and you're like, I think this is surfing. And whoever's teaching you is kind of like, sure, yeah, this is the first time surfing. Like, yeah, you're doing it the right way. You're falling a lot. And I appreciated that date because that seemed like a date. And then the discussion with the parents and honestly, it doesn't, they're all cookie cutter to me. And like, so the actual date of Huntington going surfing, I thought was nice because it's hard to look cool when you're learning to surf.
Okay.
Super hard to look cool when you're learning to surf.
That's true. That's
Personal
true.
Experience.
All right, we'll get into the details of that. So then who was your least favorite?
Hannah G.
Okay, why? Without getting too much into the
2 words. Etiquette class.
Yeah.
And then 2 more words. Shoot me. 4 words.
Okay.
That's all I have for that.
Okay.
Shoot me. So what about you? Least favorite first.
Oh,
give me that negativity.
Least favorite was Hannah G for sure. And
Can I ask why?
Same 4 words. Etiquette class, shoot me. I have so much to say about it, which we'll get into in the recap. But that was by far my least favorite.
Like so livid.
Yeah. And then my favorite was Tayshia. We'll get into details, but I loved that she took the dominant role in the date, and I loved the conversation with the parents.
That's good.
Yeah. I did a lot.
Yeah. All right.
So that is that. Now, before we get into recapping all 4, if you are with us live on YouTube or even watching this later on YouTube, hi. Let us know you're here. Comment on this video and just say hi, and let us know what your favorite and least favorite hometown date were, or was, worse. What? Worse? Oh my God.
Tell us what your favorite and least favorite hometown dates were from this season of The Bachelor.
Yes. And if you are listening to the podcast, take this moment, take a screenshot of your phone, and let us know on Instagram, even if it's through a DM. Whether you put it on your story or you slide into our DMs, we're at The Right Reasons. Let us know what your favorites were and least favorites. We want to know. So take that moment, leave us the comment, send us the DM. We don't want this to be a one-way conversation. We want to hear from you too.
Agreed.
All right. Without further ado.
Okay, so the episode starts. I don't think we got the Colton selfie.
No, there was no vlogging.
Dialogue this time?
There was no vlogging this time. In fact, there were not a lot of Colton ITM. Well, a little bit, but not. There was not a lot of like narration happening this episode. It was very much like, I love Colton, I'm falling in love, I am in love, all the different stages.
We could even just end the episode of this right there. That was pretty much this episode,
and we're done.
Everyone just sort of like whispers like, I'm in love, and that's the recap I have. I'm done. Rest of the show's yours. Yeah. Walking off. So
we start with Caelyn's hometown date, and this was a little confusing at first because she's Miss North Carolina.
Yeah.
But the hometown date was in Virginia. So I think that she must be from Virginia and then moved to North Carolina.
Yeah. How does that work? Does anyone have any knowledge of the pageantry situation when it comes to?
I didn't get that.
How do you? Because I know that athletes can be on other countries' professional teams, but when it comes to the Olympics, the athletes have to represent their country of origin. But at like world championships, they represent the team under which they are being hired from. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So is it like that, or is it more? I don't know. So she does say it was the town she grew up in. So my guess is that she then moved to North Carolina and did pageants there. But that was
maybe
weird.
Like school or something.
It was a really cute town. Small. It kind of reminded me of a hybrid of where Kyle grew up, Grass Valley, combined with Denver a little bit.
So it's funny you say that because Kailyn takes Colton on a horse carriage ride through the city to her house.
A park.
To a park. Yeah. Thank you. And 2 things about that. One, it's funny you say that her town reminds you of my hometown because my hometown used to have horse carriages that would do small rides around the local town. Here's the thing. They don't do it anymore. And the main issue was, several. One, the horses would poop in the street, and no one likes that. Secondly, the cars have a really hard time interacting with horse carriages because you can't signal on a horse carriage, and there's a lot of 4-way intersections, and it's like a whole thing. So I don't think that they actually do horse carriage rides in Caelyn's hometown. I think that whole thing was staged, especially because if you look in the back of some of the shots as they're on the horse carriage, there are police cars closing off all of the streets they're on, which they may do that just for the filming, but it also led me to believe that they actually don't do those carriage rides, and that is a gimmick of the show that they're not telling you.
Well, then that'd be really cool. Because if it's something that you can't do otherwise, like, cool.
I mean, that is also the point. Like, if I went on The Bachelor or Bachelorette and I didn't get to do things I wouldn't normally do, I'd be pretty upset at the situation.
Exactly. Right? So the date was fine. I felt
What did they do besides the park? They like hung out in the park?
So that's the thing is
what
like
did they do?
The other day she took him for ice cream at her favorite ice cream shop. And the thing with this is I felt like, hey, Tayshia already did this in Colorado. Like it didn't feel, because I know that the contestants actually get to tell production what they want the hometown dates to be. So around, I think it's when there's about 8 or 10 women left, production comes in and basically interviews them one-on-one and says, if you make it to hometowns, what do you want to do?
That's
so
smart.
that they have time to prepare based on who Colton decides to take through. So the contestants have a lot of say in what goes on. Of course, production makes it happen. The contestants don't have their phones. They can't, like Kailyn was not on the phone being like, hi, I'd like to get a horse-drawn carriage. Like, of course, the producers take that part on, but it's the contestants' idea of what to do. And I thought that it was kind of boring in that way. Like, you have this opportunity to have a date in your hometown with on The Bachelor. Like, you have a decent budget for your date.
Right.
I would want to do more personally than just have the horse-drawn carriage. Like, maybe horse-drawn carriage and then something?
I have an idea. As we're going to get into each of the hometowns, what would you take me on if you could schedule a hometown-style date for the two of us?
In their town or where I'm from?
Where you're from. If you were going to take me on a hometown-esque type of date in your hometown,
well, what's my
what
hometown?
Would that? This is the question I'm sure the girls had to ask themselves on the show.
Right. It's like, is it where I live now? Is it where I was born?
No, where
is
you're
it
from.
Right, but I'm from like 2 different places.
Well, pick one. I'm just curious. I think I know what I would do.
Okay, you go.
Well, so technically, see, here's the thing. Same issue as Rachel, because I'm from one town called Grass Valley, but there's an adjacent town about 5 miles away called Nevada City, and that's where I spent most of my time. However, I'm from the other city. What I would do...
They look the same. No one would know.
You know how wrong that is. You know how wrong that is as soon as you said it. But here's what I would do is that the area is super great for agriculture, but that's not something that I know Rachel really loves doing. But I do know that she really likes wine because I really like wine. It's something we bonded over.
I do
And
like
there
wine.
are a ton of great excursions you can do to local wineries in the area to pick your own grapes, go do barrel tastings, all kinds of fun stuff.
Can we do that?
We can do that like normally, yeah.
Why haven't we done that?
Because we've done other things. Because we're not in The Bachelor, yeah. They're not hooking up like 4 winery tours for us out in the... And plus you have to drive everywhere back in my hometown, so it's like hard to go wine tasting safely. We do that, and then like, I don't know, like go to like the New Moon, like that really nice restaurant. Something like all the local stuff, local chef, everything else. Make it super nice.
Yeah,
whatever.
That's very cool.
That's what I came up with quickly. No pressure on you. You don't have to do it. I was just curious.
I have no idea what I would do, to be quite honest with you. I gotta give that some thought.
We'll see if we can get that done by the end of the episode.
Okay,
so
deal.
Getting back into it, Caelyn's family, and there's a party waiting for them.
There were so many people at Okay.
I don't like this.
No. Why were there so many people at Caelyn's house? The first time I introduced Kyle to my family, I did it in chunks. It was like, here's my mom and brother. Here are my grandparents. Now, if I would have had my whole family there, it would have been like, here, you've never swam before, go into the deep end. Was so I felt overwhelmed for Colton, and I was not there.
Yeah. I think it would be very odd to go meet a person's family and there to be like 20 people at a barbecue. They had open fryers in the backyard. They had rented like full-on like deep oil fryers. They're frying butter in one thing. He's like, oh, this is fried butter and like all this different stuff. Like, who just has fryers in their backyard?
Okay, so to that point, I do have some tea.
I mean, I
have some tea.
That, but
to spill.
You mean you have information on the show that you would like to give out?
I'm trying to stay hip and young. So
well, now that you aren't, go ahead.
I don't know if this is the case for anybody on this season. Okay. But what I do know is there have been many families in the past that rent houses for the hometown date.
No.
Because many people don't have a home that can fit 15 people at dinner. and then have space for all of the different conversations that are happening and the camera crew to follow them around. So when you see people who have, let's say, divorced parents, right? And then all of a sudden they're all at this big giant house. A lot of times that's a rented house in the same city that they go and use for the date. Isn't that interesting?
It is interesting. I don't care for that.
Why?
It feels disingenuous to me. If you don't have space for 15 people to have dinner, don't have 15 people over.
No, but like then the camera crew couldn't fit. Like if we were to have a hometown date in our New York apartment, where would the camera crew go with more than 4 people?
Sounds like an issue for the Bachelor production team.
Right. That's why they rent a house.
Oh, fair enough. I just wish they would sit. I don't know.
But they don't say it. They're not transparent about it.
That's I think the overarching issue that I have with the show in general. And it's funny you say that because it gets revealed, I think, a lot when it comes to hometowns, because we don't know the order in which these dates are filmed. We don't know if the reason Colton's saying this on the first date is because he already went through the other 3 and he learned from his mistakes around meeting new people.
And
now he's showing up more presentable in Caelyn's because Tayshia's went this way. But we don't know that because I feel like we're getting to the point of the show where all of the editors' suggestions, production's manipulation are starting to be revealed, or the long-term consequences of them are now showing up probably pretty clearly.
And last week they were in Denver. So my guess would be, if I had to guess, that they actually went all the way east and then back west. Because,
you think so?
Well, it depends on where they're going next week. So based on where Fantasy Suites is, if it's more of a plane ride closer to the East Coast, then they would go west to east.
Yeah.
But if they're going to go West Coast, then it would be east to west. So yeah, we don't know the order in which they were filmed. All we can guess that the 2 Orange County ones were filmed back to back.
God, I'd hope so.
I mean, that would make no sense. So anyway, Caelyn's date, my biggest takeaway from Caelyn's hometown had nothing to do with Colton and had everything to do with the amazing human being that is Caelyn's stepdad.
Oh, 100%.
I legitimately teared up.
Yeah.
So for those of you, quick recap, Colton asks her if he's going to meet her dad. And Caelynn explains that she does not have a relationship with her biological father, but that her mom is married and that her stepdad has raised her since she was about 4 or 5 years old, and that she views him as her dad purely, even though it's not genetically. And by the way, genetics do not make somebody a freaking father or mother. Or
a good person.
Right.
Yeah.
So this gentleman, John, her stepdad, loves Caelynn so much, and Caelynn loves him so much. They had such an amazing moment. Her stepdad literally tells her that she has made him a better person and a better man by being his daughter. And I just I teared up. It was incredibly genuine, and you can tell that the love between the 2 of them was palpable and in a really loving way.
I really appreciated that from the standpoint of this is a healthy family dynamic.
Yes.
And
her mom was sweet.
Oh, her mom was sweet. Her dad was sweet. And what I really appreciated, because they always play, what's funny about this, you watch the entire episode, right before the commercial break, they show the next dad he's going to meet, and the dad's always like, I don't know if this guy's going to come near my daughter, blah, blah, blah. And then you get to see the dad talk, and he's fine. It's like they always portray it as this nightmare situation.
Yeah.
And then you get to it, and the dad's like, yeah, okay, you seem nice. So, and that's what happens here is that what I appreciated, though, about Caelynn's dad, John was his name?
Yeah, John.
Was that his Colton for question was not his Colton for question.
His Colton for question.
Whew. I had that second cup of coffee today.
Seriously.
Or should I have had the third cup of coffee today? His question for Colton was not how do you know that she's, or why do you like her? Yeah, how can you fall for 3 girls or whatever?
Yeah.
He asks her, how do you know she's the right person for you? And I thought Colton's answer for it was great. He said, I don't know. I'm trying to figure this out as we go. Because that's the way he's approaching these relationships. I think that he's aware of the fact that he has feelings for all 4 girls, and he's not really sure how to proceed, but he's not ready to turn any lights off yet because he doesn't really know how this is going to go. And I think that that's something that I appreciated for all the hometown dates and the way they've done them is that they're all seemingly very open-ended. They're not like, well, if he doesn't pick so-and-so, I don't know what's ever going to happen. Like, his life might be. He's like, okay, I like all of them. They're all amazing. I'm going to see how hometowns go and kind of move forward. And
I appreciated that also.
Yeah, and I like that the dad seemed to get it. He was like, okay, that makes sense. It was a really open and honest dialogue in a context that the show usually puts as a very combative situation. The show portrays these father-son, father-boyfriend conversations in like this really weird like power struggle dynamic, and it was really refreshing to see it not be that way.
I completely
Suck
agree.
It production.
Yeah, seriously. I wrote down Goal Colton with the honesty.
Nice.
I thought that it takes a lot of courage. I was going to say balls, and I just realized that is, I'm trying to not say that, but it takes a lot of courage to have the dad of somebody who you're interested in be like, well, how do you know that Kailyn is the one for you? Or how do you know that you're the one for Kailyn? I can't remember which way he said it. And he was like, I don't. Like, that takes so much courage to be that honest. And they clearly cut out a bunch of this conversation because then it kind of skips to Colton asking the dad if it gets to the point where he's ready to propose, if he has his permission.
I liked that, though. I liked how he said it.
So I did too.
So this happens every time, and we have our feelings about it. So Colton asks for permission. He stands by this position that he has.
He calls it a value.
It's one of his values that he has permission from the father to marry the daughter. And he wants the same thing should he have a daughter. It's his own words. He said that just
on
last
Twitter
night
last
on
night.
Twitter. In a Twitter.
We're so
what's
old.
going on? The internet that I heard a Twitter was saying Colton stands by this. But so I understand it is a very outdated concept, I think, because we're talking about human beings who can like do whatever the fuck they want. And the thing I do appreciate about how he asks it is this. He says, considering that our feelings progress as the show and time goes on,
I agree.
Would it be okay? Not, hey, in 2 weeks, I'm going to pop the question. He says, as long as shit keeps going the way it's going, are you cool with this? I feel like that would have been a better way of saying it, rather than like, do I have permission to take your daughter to my arm? Like, whatever. But I appreciated that he was allowing for, as long as things go well, we're going to get together.
I agree with you. If it's going to be done, I liked how he did it. It's like
Agreed.
The best of a shitty thing. However, what I will say is that I also had the comment of why didn't he ask the mom, which is part of the issue that I have with this is why is it the father's job, right? Like we're not in Fiddler on the Roof. Like it's not a dowry. We're not exchanging cows for daughters. However, somebody did tweet at Colton last night and say, why didn't you ask the moms? Or it would have been better if you asked the mom. And Colton responded with, spoiler alert, I did. And so I think that was I know it reminded me, and I hope that it reminds all of you listening, that there is a lot of this stuff that gets edited out.
Oh, so much.
They're not there for 20 minutes. They're there for a few hours. And there's a lot of conversation that we do not get to see.
Yeah.
So while I don't love the whole asking dad, and of course they only showed us his conversations with the dads for all 4 hometown dates, I do appreciate that Colton was active on social media, making sure the people knew he did ask the moms, and I'm going to trust that he did.
Right. And so I agree. I mean, I'm in there with that. So it cuts to Kailyn tells him that she's not falling in love with him. She's in love with him fully. And then in an ITM following that, she says she's ready to get married. Like,
and
it's go time.
She says, I see it for us. Yeah. He's going to get down on one knee in 2 weeks. I see it. And then it cuts to commercial.
Yeah, so Kailyn's...
Any other comments or takeaways from that date?
No. It was fine.
It felt normal to me.
Yeah. I was bored, which means it was really normal.
Right. Yes.
I was bored as fuck.
Yes, exactly. The only pieces that I really was truly intrigued was the conversation with the stepdad and her.
Yeah, 100%.
And then Colton and the stepdad. That was it. The rest of the time, I totally agree. It was so normal that I was like, I checked my Instagram during it. And that's how I know. If my like thumb goes AWOL on my phone, I'm like, oh, this is not engaging me. I need to focus.
And funny.
That's not like me. I really love the show. So
yep.
Yeah, it was vanilla.
Yeah. If
it were
boring.
an ice cream flavor,
And
vanilla chocolate chip. The chocolate chips were John.
Sure.
I really love the stepdad.
Sure. Okay. Fair. It's fair. I mean, and honestly, I Colton's kind of boring too, and like maybe that's a nice boring lifestyle. I don't know. Maybe that'll work for him. Like I don't see him as like really like challenging himself a ton on a day to day. He's got a pretty happy life to go. I don't see him.
He's not. Look,
he's
not the sharpest crayon in the box.
Well, that's.
But he is
already an insult.
No, I don't mean it as an insult. I really don't mean it as an insult. I don't.
Yeah.
Not everybody is Elon Musk. Like we cannot all be
thank God for that
smart in the same way. And I think that Colton is very smart in certain ways.
Oh, totally.
And then in other ways not. And I do think that we all have aspects of that.
Yeah.
I'm really bad at math. And if math were emotional intelligence, like the equivalent, people would think I was stupid. Like seriously. That
worries me based on if you're bad at math, you're way better at math than I am. What does that say about me?
I don't even know. But I really don't mean that as an insult. No. I think that Colton he's a Labrador.
A little boring.
He is a Labrador retriever human.
Yeah.
And I love Labradors.
That's
but
true.
They're just kind of like, I found you a stick. Aren't you proud of me? Yay.
Yeah.
Let's rub my belly.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
he's a
accurate.
Labrador.
All right, so we go to the next hometown. We go to Birmingham, Alabama for Hannah G.
The first note I wrote down is, will we get to learn anything about Hannah?
Oh, we do learn something about Hannah, but we only learn it at the very end of the episode in the bloopers.
Yeah, so
we'll get there.
We did
super
not
exciting.
Learn.
So
it was the worst date ever. That I'm just telling you, Kyle. If you took me to an etiquette class, we would have been over.
Good to know. I'm glad I never did that. So here's my issue.
Tell me.
So we're already struggling with the asking the father for permission trope, for lack of a better word.
Yes.
And that's already weird because these women are all of adult
consenting age.
Yeah, they can all make their own decisions. Some of them can't rent a car legally yet, but that's fine. Everything else that they can do is fine and legal. They're adults. They can have jobs, buy houses, whatever.
That tickled me.
So
they can buy houses. How weird is that? You can buy a house and join the military, but you can't rent a car.
I know.
What is that?
That is, it's odd.
That's strange.
Stupid law. Anyway, so we're dealing with this traditional issue, right? Where this is like the way things have been done. The guy asked the father for permission. There's like an exchange of money or a dowry or something. And then like now the woman belongs to the new guy. We're in a very weird, we keep seeing this theme come back up around like traditional ways of being.
It's a very strange.
Which is odd because it's not, I wouldn't imagine any of these women, if they really looked at it in this context of, hey, this guy needs permission to like engage with me at all. Like, because I can't make that decision for myself. That decision needs to be made by another man. It doesn't make sense. And I think if they framed it that way and looked at it that way instead of the way things are or the way things have been done, I think none of them would be very happy about it because I'd hope that they would all have the self-confidence to not want someone else to dictate their life, which is what they're asking their dads to do. And basically giving up their own self-value, it's bullshit. Anyway, since I don't like traditional stuff, clearly, as we're getting into this.
That's not true. You do
so I like traditional stuff, but I think that's a weird traditional thing that needs to go away. And on top of that, Hannah G takes Colton to an etiquette class. Here's the funny thing. Colton's been criticized too polished.
Yes.
And presentable. So you take the guy that's being criticized for being too good at what he does talking-wise, and then you take him to a fucking Southern etiquette class because nothing's better than a Southern gentleman. What does that mean? And that has weirder connotation in today's world. And then there's the whole bread thing.
Okay, This was literally my favorite part of the whole thing, though. So he goes, the woman leading the etiquette class is like, hold on. I'm going to move my mic so I can fully role play this.
I'm like so annoyed at this.
She's like, okay, Colton, now butter your bread, which by the way, he tries serving Hannah G a roll, and the woman's like, oh, no, because you touch it with your finger, she can serve her own, like take her own roll. And He was like, okay, well, don't touch these two, or don't take these two because I touched them.
Wait, so the woman can get her own bread but can't pick the guy she wants to be with?
Right.
Get your shit together, traditions.
So backwards.
Stupid.
So he eventually gets the roll, and she's like, okay, so how do you think that you eat, like you butter the roll?
She said, go ahead and butter your roll.
And he takes his knife.
Like a human.
And starts cutting the roll in half. Like any person does.
Yeah, to spread butter on it like you would toast, a bagel, any form of bread.
Oh, no. You tear off a piece of bread. You butter the piece of bread. And you eat the piece of bread. And Colton's face was like...
So his face was like this from the beginning when Hannah's like, we're taking etiquette class. His face was this, like... how do I say no but still smile? Like, I don't understand.
They cut to this ITM of Colton outside the etiquette class, and he goes, all I know is how to eat the bread.
He's like, I don't have time to butter each individual bite of bread. What is this? So he and I had very similar views on this.
Yeah.
I wrote down, this shit looks moronic. The proper way to eat bread, in quotes, Colton is as upset and annoyed as I am while watching this. How does this etiquette woman have a job? Who pays for this? Is she now giving them marital advice? The etiquette lady started giving them marital advice.
The umbrella
Who
thing.
is this person?
The umbrella thing.
And also, what?
Yeah, it was weird. It was, and this is my whole thing. I don't know if this is the editing or because, okay, you know what it reminds me of is on Ari season, Lauren Burnham, who is now pregnant and they're married and happy. We did not hear anything about Lauren at all the whole season.
Nope.
We do not know anything about Hannah. And so for this date, again, they get to choose what they do. It was another thing that took away from actually learning about who Hannah is. It was about Colton becoming this quote unquote Southern gentleman, which literally I wrote down like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
What is that? Especially in today's day and age where a quote unquote Southern gentleman, a lot of that is associated with a lot of systemic racism and a lot of like sexism. And I don't know if I were a man, and I can only speak from my female perspective, but the term Southern gentleman for me does not have a super positive connotation in 2019.
You don't want to know what it makes me think of?
Well, just one.
Yeah.
I don't mean any offense to any man who's from the South or has great manners. That is not at all what I mean. Just that phrase in itself does not, in my experience, have a super positive connotation today. Yeah,
when I hear the phrase Southern gentleman, I kind of think of Leonardo DiCaprio's character in Django Unchained, where he is because he does like all this proper stuff and everything's the right way and everything's the right table setting and everyone does the right role when they get up to eat and like all these different things. And if you've seen the movie, it's not like a great person I'd want to align myself with. Here's my issue with the Hannah G date and the etiquette class. Besides the fact that it's a fucking etiquette class and they're both grown-ass adults. Here's my issue. It's a waste of time. It's your hometown date. You know what Kailyn did? She showed him the hometown. Yeah. They ran around in a horseback carriage thing. They got ice cream from her favorite place. They sat in a park. They literally saw the hometown. These two went to a building that I'm pretty sure was like just for like a historical site, just for etiquette classes, which hooray. But it doesn't show her anything else. It's like, here's my hometown. Oh, wait, it's a class on how to annoy people at dinner parties. No, that's what she took him to. That's the hometown.
It is. It didn't do anything. So then they leave etiquette class and they go to her house,
which has a ton of people waiting again.
Yeah.
What's the deal?
I know. Do they all want to be on TV?
Maybe. I mean, which is fine. I guess she is an influencer content creator, which means very good at Instagram.
But look. Here's what I'll give Hannah G.
What?
There have been people on the show, and I'll use Robbie Hayes as an example, where literally his title on the show was influencer, but he was very skeezy and shady about how he described it.
Oh, yeah.
Hannah G has been incredibly open that she does modeling and product content creation for social media.
Right.
Whether or not you want to call that, not you, but like general you, want to call that an influencer or judge that, I don't think that is, that is a real job in 2019.
Right.
That is, we don't have as many paper catalogs anymore. I know I've shopped many things on Instagram, and a lot of it is because I've seen people who I follow and respect using a product or a service, and I'm like, oh, I like that person. Let me check out what this is.
Right. I think that the reason that she gets so much, the reason, at least for me, is the reason that there's so much making fun of the fact that her title says content creator, and it just means she's an Instagram person that does like selling and product stuff on Instagram, which is fine. That is a job.
And she does create.
I just don't know anything fucking else about her.
That's the problem.
Who cares?
Right. That's
what
the problem.
do you like? Do you not like a type of food? Who's to say? Do you not like coffee? I don't know. Do you not something other than nothing? And so they get to the hometown, they get to her house, and I'm real happy for Colton. He gets to be back in his happy place. He's got a glass of white wine. He's given a toast. He's really happy, and I appreciate it for him.
I do have to add, though, he was holding his wine glass incorrectly.
Yeah.
And if they had just come from etiquette class, why didn't they teach him how to hold a wine glass? For those of you who may not know what I'm talking about. So a wine glass has the bowl right at the top, and then the stem, and then the flat part at the bottom.
Yeah.
When wine is in the bowl part, and this comes back to Kyle and I working in restaurants for a long time. When the wine is in the glass part, like the part that holds the wine, if you hold it there, not only do your fingerprints get all over it, which is annoying and it looks gross, but it actually heats up. There's so much heat in your hand, it heats up the wine. So whether it's white or red wine, you don't want it warmer than the temperature that it is served. So that is why you'll see people who have worked in restaurants or teach wine stuff, they will always be holding a wine glass by the stem, if not the bottom of the glass. So Colton's holding it from the bulb. And I know, I always say bowl, the bulb.
It's fine.
And it just, it's like.
So it's not only is it funny that you say that, because we joked about it last night, and I forgot to write this down, but when they get to the etiquette class, if we're going to get, okay, fine, we're going to get weird about the way they do alcohol serving in the show, and Colton's thing about holding the glass wrong in etiquette class being stupid bullshit. The wine bottles at etiquette class were also opened wrong. Yeah. Etiquette class. You're not supposed to cut the foil above the little notch, because then the wine and the foil interact. You cut beneath. Suck it. Etiquette.
And this is the whole thing is like, did he need to learn how to butter a roll, or like, can he learn how to open up a bottle of wine and hold wine properly?
Yeah,
like,
without looking like an idiot.
Those are useful tools.
Yeah.
I want to know how to make my wine taste better, which is to not warm it up and to not get foil.
Right. How to pour wine is a great skill to have. Focus on things that are practical, not bread eating.
Anyway.
What if Colton has celiac disease? We don't know.
Dude, I was thinking that the whole time. I was like, if I went on this date, what if I had not shared with the person that I couldn't eat bread? And then they'd be like, pull the bread. And I'd be like, I can't.
Etiquette says that you do what you're told when you're in the...
Anyway, okay, so moving over, Hannah G's parents seem to be displeased about her getting married at the beginning. And not about Colton or the process of The Bachelor. Just displeased about her getting married. In fact, the mom has a quote, and again, probably way out of context, but she literally says she's always been mine.
Ugh.
Which made me like, I feel like my eye was like, ugh! Like, I literally started twitching.
Like,
you don't.
I've owned a dog.
Parents, you do not own your children.
Yeah, when they turn 18, they can just fuck. They can go.
Even before that.
Well, you have legal guardianship of.
But you don't own them.
Right.
They are not yours to choose to give away.
I mean, that's a blanket statement for like humanity in general. We don't really own other people. It's not a good thing to
But then, Colton acknowledges his feelings to Hannah's dad. And Hannah's dad looks floored. Like,
he did not expect it.
Legitimately floored.
Yeah.
And he acknowledges out loud that it must have been really hard to do what Colton just did, which was express his feelings and then, again, ask for permission if the feelings progress. So I feel like the dad might not be used to people expressing feelings.
That would also make sense.
Colton expressed his feelings and he was like, wow.
He's like, that was really hard for you to do. And I'm like, do you not know what the show is?
I'm like, I do that every day.
Yeah.
Oh.
The first thing we ask is like how we feel in the morning. So.
And then the mom gives her good advice.
So who asks, does it scare you that he's a virgin? Was that the sister or the mom? Someone in Hannah G's family asks, does it scare you that he's a virgin?
I think that was the sister.
Because they're talking about hometown suites coming up. So one of the women in Hannah's family,
hometown suites.
Whatever. Fantasy suites, it's like a million terms.
2 different weeks.
Fine. So when it comes to fantasy suites, actually fantasy hometowns, that's a date I would want to see. Like, where's your fantasy hometown? Let's go there and check out what life there would be like. That'd be a great date for the show. ABC, let me know. Okay, whatever. Whatever. So someone in her family asks her, it's another woman, I don't remember who, it was her mom and her cousin or her sister or something, does it scare you that he's a virgin? What? What do you, in reference to the fantasy suites coming up, what does she expect? Why would she be scared? Are they concerned Colton's penis is going to do something strange? Like, why frame it that way? Is he like, what's the suggestion? Why would you be scared?
So, and this is where I feel that the men in particular on the show cannot win. Because if you have a guy, let's say Colton was not a virgin.
What?
The assumption would be that he has slept with many people, being in sports and all of this, right? There's this whole assumption, which is why people thought he was lying.
Yeah.
He's tall, strong, handsome, attractive, played on the sidelines of the NFL.
That's true.
If he had been a quote-unquote player and has had sex with many people.
Player in the way of sleeping with lots of women, not actual football.
Oh, yeah. Then it would be like, are you nervous because he's kind of a player? And then he's not. He hasn't slept with someone, and they're like, are you nervous because he's a virgin? I don't think that men can win. Not that there's winning, but...
No. There's just not a fair shake of it. No matter what they do, they're being criticized for their sexual.
It's like, what is the quote unquote appropriate number? And what do you walk into the hometown and be like, all right, I've had sex with 4 people. I'm the national average, so don't worry. My penis works.
Right.
Everything works okay, but I haven't had sex with too many people.
Right. And the conversation goes on to allude like, well, do you think that he's like ready for this? Because, and it's the same thing of whether or not he can commit into an emotional relationship because he has not inserted his penis into a vagina is the weight that's being given to the situation and the thing that determines his quality as a partner. I wrote, go home with that ignorant shit. Oh, wait, you're already home.
Also, just the idea that it's this all or nothing mentality of sexual intercourse being the only way. This guy could be like the blowjob master. Like, who knows? He could have received like blowjobs from like 300 people. We don't know.
I like that you said people. Very open-ended.
Ben Higgins looked at him really nicely. I don't know. So she tells him that, quickly, the mom actually gives her good advice about listening to her gut. Hannah G actually cries, which I was like, emotion. It was very exciting.
That was nice.
So now I know she has feelings, which is another fact that we have about Hannah G.
Yeah.
And Hannah G's mom says this beautiful quote. She says in her ITM, "I'm completely down for love. I think it's a great thing." So she clearly comes around.
I'm down for love too. That's a thank you, Hannah G's mom, for coming around.
Yeah,
we're all down for love.
It was nice. The family definitely came around. Really liked Colton.
Yeah.
And at this point, Hannah G tells Colton that she's falling in love with him.
Yeah.
So at this point in the show, we're halfway through, which I know we're gonna go a little bit faster here because we are talking a lot. But Hannah G is falling. Kailyn is in love, and both dads have given permission to marry.
Yeah. It's also at this point in my notes that I begin the liberal use of the shoulder shrug emoji, which kind of tells you how the rest of the episode will go. So they both say they're falling in love with each other. Shoulder shrug emoji. Cut to commercial. It's Tayshia's hometown.
So
in a very familiar area.
Yeah. So the rest of the show is in Orange County, California, which is where I spent 15 years of my life, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on which angle you look at it through.
I don't view it negatively.
I don't view it negatively. I just don't. It's not home to me, even though I guess that would be where my hometown date would be.
I still think it would be
probably in the Bay Area because I spent the first 9 years of my life there. I don't know, whatever. But my parents are in Southern California, so it would probably be in Orange County. Yeah, it would be. So we both knew both of these areas, and it was cool to be like, oh, I know where they are. I know where, that's always fun.
Santa Ana.
Tayshia, again with the adventure. So I loved this. This
was good.
She blindfolded him, and she's driving, and at one point, Colton hits his head against the side of the car.
You know what? Blindfolded Colton didn't touch him with prosthetic hand. Good job, Tayshia. Really moving on from the last time he was blindfolded on this show.
That's true. I forgot about that.
Really using a blindfold in a mature and fun way rather than a borderline harassment and groping way.
Sexual assault. Yeah. I really, really, really liked their banter in the car. She's like, oh, I haven't driven in so long, just to kind of fuck with him. And they just have cute banter, and they're like, are we fighting? Is this our first fight?
Yeah, they're cute, and they flirt together in a really natural way.
And
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I did too. They get to the destination, which is they are going skydiving, and Colton looks at her so scared. He looks like, and I mean this with a lot of respect, he looks like a 5-year-old who's like, I don't want to go on the scary roller coaster.
100%.
The 5-year-old outside of Space Mountain at Disneyland was Colton's face.
Oh, yeah.
And he goes, I thought you said you hated heights. And she says, I do. And he's like, so do I.
So as we learn, as he kind of he does this in his own ITM, and he's like, "Oh shit, this is for that bungee jumping thing that she didn't want to go on." Yeah, he's like, oh, that's what's happening right now."
YouTubers, I'm very warm, so I'm gonna take off my jacket thing, shawl.
Okay,
my requisite therapist shawl.
And it's funny that you said that because that's a quote from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which also takes place adjacent to Santa Ana, California, and there's a whole joke about Santa Ana in the show. So if you're a fan of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, I had a good laugh about where this date was filmed.
If you like this podcast and show, you will like Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
Yeah.
So go check it out. We love Rachel Bloom.
Yeah.
So
they're both scared. It's endearing how scared they are. And a direct quote from Rachel's, I love watching Colton be scared.
I did say that. Yeah. It's very endearing. And I love, Colton makes a joke. They're going up in the airplane. And Colton makes a joke and he goes, I really hope I survive this. I really need to survive because I still need to lose my virginity. And I hear it's really good.
He's like, everyone tells me I got to do it. So I really need to make it out of the skydiving situation. And that was a recorded joke from earlier they played while he's getting on the plane. I thought it was great. It was funny. And that's the funny way to point at his virginity in a lighthearted way. When people are like, ooh, I don't know if he can commit to a relationship because his penis hasn't been used enough. That sounds stupid. This funny and endearing.
Yeah, it was very cute.
Earlier dumb. This funny.
And I will say, so we get to see them go skydiving, and props to the camera crew on this.
Oh,
I thought that they captured it quite well. I felt like I was experiencing skydiving. Like they got them in the airplane, they got them falling out. Their facial expressions were great. Colton does this funny kick thing when he exits the plane, which was hilarious.
Yep.
And they both really enjoy themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It actually kind of made me want to go skydiving a little bit.
It was a really, really, this felt like an actual date and not and
a bachelor date at that. The bachelor's paying for your date. Do something that costs money.
Right, the horse-drawn carriage, sure, ice cream, whatever, etiquette class, hard no. This felt like an actual date.
Yeah.
And additionally, I feel like this was a really intelligent, strategically done date on Tayshia's part.
Strategic.
Because if they asked them, so when they asked that there's about 8-10 women left, it must have been right after their bungee jumping thing in Thailand, Singapore. I want to say. Singapore. So it must have been right after that.
How do I remember that?
I don't know. So it must have been right after that. So she probably was kind of thinking that. So there's this thing that human beings do where when your adrenaline is spiked and you're in this activated moment,
like a danger zone
situation where you're fight or flight, your adrenaline's pumping, all that's kind of activated in your brain and your body. It's very common, and back me up with the science here if you can.
I will.
to bond with someone through those emotions in a way that is almost overpowering. So it's like shared experiences of something not traumatic but also exciting.
Well, it is. It's the same thing that happens when you bond in a traumatic experience. But with this, you have the addition of the crazy dopamine rush of joy. And then if you're going to touch afterwards or during, like at all, like even like this, for podcast listeners, awesome. I'm just touching Kyle's arm. Oxytocin gets released, and that's the bonding hormone. Yeah. And here's the thing about oxytocin. It lasts, I think, I cannot remember the exact amount. I'll go back and put it in the notes. But I believe it's somewhere around 10 times longer in women than in men. So men metabolize and get rid of oxytocin a lot quicker than women do, which is why there's this stereotype of when two people, a heterosexual two people, sleep together, that the woman bonds more intensely than the man. Yep. That's only because that oxytocin that gets released during orgasm and during the sex lasts longer in the woman. So she's feeling it for, let's say, a week. I'm using a number that's not statistically accurate, but let's say a week, and his is over by the end of the day. Makes sense. They're bonding by doing stuff like this, which is great. Right. And she tells him they come down and they're sitting on a bench, and she says, "I'm falling in love with you. I appreciate you so much." Yeah. And this felt very genuine. There have been times with Tayshia that I cannot tell if she is being fully genuine or not. And I think that some of that has to do with holding back, and I think that some of it has to do with the cameras. But this felt incredibly genuine. Yeah. And he says I'd agree that he's falling for her too. So he has now told 3 out of the 4 women that he is falling in love with them. Yeah. And then they tongue kiss. Take that, Ben Higgins. Although Ben did say in love. And yeah, Colton that's true. Said that well, yet. And we do get to mention Ben Higgins later. And then they tongue kiss, shoulder shrug emoji. Commercial break. Yeah, commercial break. Then goes to Tayshia's family, which, as you remember or don't, earlier in the season, she's like, "My dad is gonna be a problem," and he's like, "Okay, well, cool. Okay, thanks for the heads up that your dad's gonna be a dick." Yeah, it was funny. Which, surprise, surprise, no, he's not. Yeah. This and there's only 4 people waiting for him when he gets over there, which if I walked into this house and I don't know what order they're filmed in, I would have been like, oh. I would have been like, thank you for having less than a party. Honestly. Yep. So the mom acknowledges, okay. So the first breakaway conversation that we see is Tayshia and her mom talking. Not a great one. And something that came up for me, and this speaks to a bigger thing than even just The Bachelor, is everyone is so concerned about their daughter, whatever, getting hurt. Yeah. And they keep repeating this, marriage is for life. Marriage is for life. This is the end all be all. And okay, let me find my words. I do think that in an ideal world, if you want to get married, you get married once, right? That's ideal. You find your person, you go through life with them. That's lovely. Yes. I could walk outside right now and get hit by the bus that just drove by. There is no guarantee of not getting hurt in life. In fact, there is more of a guarantee that we will get hurt in life than not. Whether that is emotional or physical or psychological, we will get hurt. Mm-hmm. So sitting there putting so much emphasis on, I just don't want you to get hurt. Well, guess what? If it's not Colton that hurts her, something else is going to. Yeah, that line of thinking ends up with people who lock their children in the basement until they deem it appropriate for them to leave. Like you that's an unhealthy You cannot bubble wrap your child emotionally or physically. There's even a movie about it called Bubble Boy, and it doesn't go well. Surprise. So that aspect, it kept getting brought up, and it really made me think about that because, of course, as parents and as friends and as sisters and brothers and aunts and uncles, we don't want to see our loved ones get hurt. Yeah. Of course. But the reality is that they're going to. Kyle and I have been together for how long? 7 years? Something like that. Yeah. Somewhere around there. God, we're so bad with that. I know. We never understand why. I'm like, 100 years? I don't know. And while we have not broken up ever, Kyle has hurt me. I have hurt Kyle. We're still together because we've processed that hurt. But this general blanket statement of, I don't want my daughter to get hurt. I'm afraid you're going to get hurt. Well, then don't live.
That's the shit that leads to divorces, because here's the thing is that if you want your relationship to progress as you change and grow and get old or whatever, then you need to be doing constant work in it, because the relationship needs to be updated as we as human beings change. I think anyone can say that they are a different person in almost every aspect than they were 5 years ago. We continuously move forward in different ways and shapes and forms all the time. And if you don't update your relationship as you go along, yeah, that's a great way to get hurt, but it's all about treating the same way you want to take care of your body, little incremental things of being healthy, same thing for your relationship. And it's not like you get married once and then it's fine forever. Right. And that's the idea they're peddling with this concept of, well, I don't want you to get hurt. Like, fucking too bad. Then put her out of her misery. Like, that's right. The only way to guarantee no more hurt is death.
Yep.
100%.
In fact, we actually, in our business, Wright Wellness Center, we have this free handout that keeps people updated because we're changing, and it's like a date night activity.
We just did this too.
I'll tag it below this video because we brought this up. I think that those of you in relationships would really appreciate it, so I'll hook that PDF up below.
We actually were just we were using those questions just the other day actually for fun. It's so fun to do because
I learned things.
Right. Well, things changed. Like, my favorite food is no longer whatever it was a couple of years ago. It's no longer jalapeno popper mac and cheese because I don't like being overweight.
Okay. So that was Tayshia and her mom.
Right.
Then the dad. Do you want to start that?
So here's the thing with the dad. The show built it up, and Tayshia herself is at fault for this. She's like, he's gonna be difficult with you. We saw it a bunch, and Colton's like, "Ooh, okay, I'll be concerned about him being difficult and all that." But here's the funny thing: the dad was like, "I've seen my daughter get divorced. She was really upset. I'm extra protective as a result of that." The dad was fine. He explained why he's defensive.
Yep.
He was open to hearing what Colton had to say. Asked inquisitive questions. He wasn't a dick about it. He didn't create problems. He wasn't even rude. He was a kind person who's extra protective of his daughter because she has had a divorce in her life already, and he's a little bit more activated around relationship stuff, and she's on a reality dating show, and at the point where I think the brother later on is interviewed with Colton. He's talking with Colton. He's like, I don't think our dad thought it was going to get this far. I also agree, brother.
Yeah.
I don't think that the dad thought it was going to get this far.
Well,
now he's got a camera crew and this like 6 foot tall dude in your house who's like, I'm going to marry your daughter.
You have a 4 in 30 chance of having it get to this point.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it's not. Yeah, I agree with you. I said
thought the dad was fine.
The dad asks him not to lead anyone on, to be honest.
Yep.
He wants to understand and make sure that he's choosing his words well and not just tossing around the word love to toss it.
The dad asks him how he could be falling in love with multiple women. Great question. Because he tells him that I'm falling in love with multiple women.
Which is, again, courageous and honest.
Right. And so with that, Colton then explains how he could be falling in love with multiple women better than Ben Higgins ever has in all of his years being a commenter on The Bachelor world.
We do love Ben.
I do.
Side note.
He does kind of fluster. He's like, well, I don't know. It's just 2 girls and blah, blah, blah. He doesn't do a great job explaining that he was able to. Yeah, Ben doesn't do a great job explaining why he's able to fall in love with 2 women. But Colton did a great job explaining how he is falling in love with 4. So good on him for that. But here's what I like the most. So Colton tells the dad, Tayshia's dad, that he is falling in love with all the women. And Tayshia's dad looks at him and says, would you tell her that?
Oh, yeah.
Great question.
That was such a good question.
Great question.
Colton doesn't even blink, and he's like, yeah.
He's like, yeah, 100%. So he asked for the blessing, and...
Oh, I have the quote. Okay.
Okay, you have the quote
I wrote down the exact quote. So he asks for the permission/blessing, which we've already addressed. And the dad says, this is a direct quote. Mm-hmm. Colton, wow. Man, you're laying it on me. I appreciate you, if you will, manning up, but I just met you. I need to make sure it's the right thing. Straight up, I think you're a great guy, but I need to protect her. So thanks for the good talk. I wrote down she's not yours to give away.
Yeah.
Here's my thing is by the end, and we'll get to the end in just a second, he does come around. However, I think that in the moment, he handled this okay.
Yeah.
I don't love the phrase manning up. And I don't like I can't give you my blessing because I need to protect her thing. Because he can say, I give you my blessing as long as my daughter wants to do this.
That'd be nice.
It's not his decision.
Right. So they do a quick commercial, and then Colton and the brother talk, and we get to kind of understand things more, a little bit about the dad.
And then Tayshia and her dad.
Yeah, and Tayshia and her dad, we get to understand them a little bit more. And here's the funny thing about a lot of Colton's interactions with the family members. They really can't come up with anything besides like, but what if it's not the right person? That's like life. Like, okay, if I go eat at a restaurant, what if this restaurant gives me food poisoning? I don't know that, but I'm still going to eat there and find out. So I think that the fact that they can't really come up with anything more substantial than just what if he's not telling the truth or what if he doesn't pick you, that's a good indication for, I think, how Colton is as a person.
Also, to add on to that, outside of being on The Bachelor, that's still real life. Like, even though you and I met in normal circumstances and not on reality TV, there's still a chance that you could have been lying to me or that you could have been in love with somebody else.
I could still be lying all these years.
Oh, geez. That'd be a long con. A lot of energy put into it. But, like, seriously, why does this format, if anything, and Cassie actually says this later, she says something along the lines of, like, you know, if he picks me at the end, I know that our relationship is the strongest, that he explored relationships with 3 other women and chose me. And in a way, that is actually, I get that viewpoint.
Yeah.
So I didn't like that. But.
Okay.
Tayshia was very honest with her dad.
Yeah.
And the dad reluctantly tells her that he trusts her.
Yeah.
And then in the moment, he says that he feels 10 times better after talking to Tayshia. And they cut to a group family discussion. And he does give Colton his blessing. I wrote down that I hate how that happened, but good for the dad in being open and actually coming around. I do think it takes a fair amount of humility to start the night off with, like, there's no fucking way. And then being like, all right, my daughter's happy. I trust my daughter.
Yeah.
You seem like a very nice guy. I have to trust in this. But I do. Oh,
go ahead.
Are you sure?
Keep talking.
I do hate that Colton was reluctant to move forward had the dad not given the blessing.
Oh, I don't think reluctance is the right term.
Like he wouldn't have?
Yeah.
But we know that that's not true with later in the episode, which we'll get to.
I guess. The direct quote from him is saying how happy he is that he can now proceed in a relationship with Tayshia because he has the father's blessing.
No. I know. What I'm saying is that with Cassie, which we'll get to in just a second, he does not get the father's permission.
Right. Which the whole concept is bad and directly setting back feminism.
Yeah, seriously.
By suggesting that. All right.
So that was that.
Beach.
So Cassie, Huntington Beach. Huntington Beach, by the way, is a beautiful, fun place. It's kind of a party beach town.
That makes sense.
There's some great restaurants. There's the Huntington Beach Pier, lots of surf shops. But it is a destination for people to surf. And so I did appreciate the fact that they went surfing because it was an activity that shoved Colton really, like, out of his comfort zone. And like we mentioned at the beginning, like, kind of everybody who hasn't surfed, whether you're an athlete or not, sucks at surfing.
Yeah.
Like,
No, it's not an easy thing to pick up.
And I loved seeing Colton, who is so fit and is so coordinated in many ways, just flail.
Oh, yeah. No, it goes to show that athleticism in one thing does not result in athleticism in many things.
Yeah. I just wish we could have seen footage of him getting in his wetsuit.
Sure.
No, because
that's an odd want.
Well, he's so thick, like tree trunk thick, and wetsuits are like really hard. Like they're so tight, and the fabric is like very. If you've ever put one on, you know what I'm talking about. I just wish I could have seen how long it took to like get it around him.
Got it.
Yeah.
Weird want, but all right.
I know.
So he asks her once they're done surfing where she's at because he acknowledged that she knows where he's at in the relationship. He already told her that he's falling for her, and she's been a little hesitant to say the same thing. And then she follows up saying that, I want you to meet my family before I say anything or how I feel. Family first. And she's like, oh, sure, I get that. A bunch of families there. And then it's the same. This is the problem when I get to this episode. At this point, I don't care. We've seen 3 hometown dates. They're all the same when it meets the family. It's just a cookie cutter of... I wrote family rigmarole. Rigmarole actually is a great vocabulary word to use in this. Just look it up.
What does that mean?
It's basically like a convoluted or overly complex series of events or discussion topics.
Oh.
So
I learned
the family rigmarole around, are you ready? I don't want you to get hurt. Or is this serious enough? All of that gets asked. Everyone's like, this is the thing. So Cassie's, I'll read exactly what I wrote last night. The mathematician of a sister reminds Cassie that there are literally hundreds of guys out there.
I think she said millions, I thought.
No, she said literally hundreds.
That's even better.
So maybe she's taking into account that there's like only a certain amount of people that you may end up with in life, and that may be in the hundreds range.
Right.
But like, literally, there's 3 billion dudes out there. So let's just...
There's a lot of literallys happening on this season.
And then the parents are all cookie cutter. It's like the mom is supportive but cautious. The dad is trying to be protective, but also, he can't really find anything to say about it besides, is this serious enough?
He was my least favorite dad.
That's the thing. He was like trying to be like, I'm condescending and I'm the man in this house. But then when he would try to say anything, it just didn't go well. So all the dad did really was scowl, I felt like.
I did not. I don't know how to explain this, but for those of you who know me or follow me on Instagram or any of that, I'm very empathic and I pick up on people's energy a lot and will just have like pretty good gut instincts about people.
Yeah.
I don't like her dad. There is something about him that gives me the heebie-jeebies. I don't like him. The way that Cassie and her dad were talking, he was talking to her as though she was a 16-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Bringing home her date to go to prom.
Yeah. He tells her basically to be patient, but out of the 4 girls, she's being the most patient. She's the only one who hasn't said that she's falling in love with Colton. She's the only one who's been like, well, I want to hold back on how I feel and, I want to see how this goes. She's actually being patient. She doesn't self-represent very well with her dad, which I think a lot of us have weird things around our parents. We're like not really sure in our early 20s, especially at 23.
Yeah, and I couldn't tell if that was her age or...
Honestly, I think it's both. I think it's her age, and I think it's how she was raised by her family. I think that she's still in like the little girl mentality around her parents. And then because 23 is a weird age because you can do everything besides rent a car, including getting married and starting a family and fighting for our country and all of these things. But maturity-wise, like in a mental form, you're not quite there. There's a lot that happens between 23 and 25 and 28. A lot happens between those years. And I think it shows up a little bit. But she doesn't self-represent well, so she's not like, dude, I am being patient. The other girl said they loved him. I haven't said that yet.
I mean, she doesn't know that.
She doesn't know that, but she didn't tell him, like, hey, I'm holding off on, like, telling Colton how much I feel about him. And then in an ITM, the dad says, Cassie is still my girl.
Creepy.
I wrote down, do you really want to examine that phrase, bro? Like, that's weird. She's not yours.
I did not like this dynamic.
It's weird.
And for all I know, he is just the nicest guy. And if he is, like, I will retract my words. I have no factual evidence. There is something off there. And she says a couple of things that indicate to me just a lack of sense of self, which was, I want you to trust me and I don't want you to be mad at me.
Yeah, that was weird.
And
why would he be mad at you?
Right. So
It was weird. It was weird.
There's a level of higher maturity in the sense of she is being way more cautious with how she's expressing her emotions to Colton.
Yep.
And that does take maturity.
Yep.
That is a mature decision to say, I'm not going to say I'm falling in love with you just to stay on the show.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet. And so I want to wait until I'm there to say something. And there are things about her that feel very young and that very much don't seem like, not that she's not ready for marriage, but that she's not necessarily even ready to just pick one person to be with.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like ordering off of a large menu would be difficult with Cassie, and that doesn't bode well for your relationship decisions.
Right.
In a menu style format.
And again, though, like, and we mentioned this last week, I think it was last week, we don't know the inner workings of these people well enough. She could be totally ready to settle that. Like, we don't know her past experiences or what she's gone through.
Which actually is kind of a problem when you're at hometowns. We don't know much about Cassie, honestly.
We know more about Cassie than Hannah.
Okay. I mean, yeah, that's true, I guess.
So Cassie...
We know more about the moon than the sun, but like barely. Okay.
Colton asked the dad for the blessing. And the quote that the dad said, you know, as far as her hand in marriage goes, that would be a premature blessing. And...
Sure. Okay.
Colton really... So then they're talking afterwards, just Cassie and Colton. And Colton clearly wants to hear from her. Like, now you met my family. Now I know. I'm totally falling in love with you. And she says, I'm really excited to see where we can go. And I don't want this to be over. So again, like, she knows that he's looking for that at this point in the show. But she's not willing to say it unless she feels it. So again, like, points for her in that. But
and that's it.
So I put Colton wanted to hear she was falling in love with him. So now he's confused because she's taking things slowly and is careful with her words and didn't get the patriarchal blessing. Yeah. So then we cut to the rose ceremony. And at this point, I was like, because Cassie, as you guys know, if you've been listening, was my number one choice. I thought that for sure.
Yeah. After this date, I have my doubts.
I did not know who was going to go home during this rose ceremony. I went into the episode with thinking that Hannah G was going to go home.
And she's the first one to get the rose. And then they cut to an interview of her where I don't know what she plans on doing to Colton in the fantasy suite, but I wrote down Hannah's going to get that D.
She did say insert Hannah Colton make out scene here.
And the production followed up by insert, which the fact that she even did this and said insert and then didn't like follow up. I think there's one moment she's being interviewed. She goes insert and then she's like clip of us making out here. I think that she almost caught herself saying something really inappropriate.
Yep.
So obviously Hannah's going to fuck Colton hardcore.
I mean, maybe.
She said more or less the exact thing.
No, I'm not. I'm saying she wants to. I don't know. As a virgin, I don't know if you would want to have
someone
sex.
Come on so aggressively?
No.
Oh.
I don't know if you would want to have sex with all three women.
I mean, apparently, according to their family, you need to like use your dick a bunch to be a valuable person. So who knows if he needs to like get all three out of his system or like what?
Like, I'm really excited for this
week. Now I'm wondering if she might come on a little bit too. She definitely came on strong in the ITMs, and Colton said that really weird thing like a week ago where he's like, "I want my first time to be like intimate and gentle and blah blah blah," and she's gonna love it. And like, that's a little lofty to say she's gonna love it, but the way Hannah was talking about the fantasy suite is not the same way Colton's talking about it, and that to me actually is refreshing to want to see a woman on national television.
That's true.
Be
Good
like
job,
the aggressor. She's like, "I'm gonna fuck this dude. This is awesome." She's pretty stoked for the physical chemistry there, and it's refreshing to see instead of it being the guy always in that position.
I was gonna say if the gender roles were reversed, that would have come across creepy and douchey.
Yeah, no, that would have been weird if the guy was like, "I can't wait, we're gonna fuck." Yeah,
right.
Okay, so next,
or if a guy was like, "Insert clip of me making out with her," like I would have been like, "Ew."
Yeah, like insert shower scene here. Weird.
Yeah, so that's interesting.
Which it was weird.
The next rose goes to Tayshia. And literally at this point, I'm like, my mouth was agape.
I wrote down twist. For some reason, I didn't think Tayshia would keep going, but she did really well, too.
I thought she would.
I think the skydiving put that together. If she hadn't done skydiving, I don't think Tayshia would have made it.
Interesting.
Personally.
I think why Tayshia made it is because she's like the turtle to me in this. The tortoise. She is just slow and steady. Yep. Her relationship has been building at what feels like a much more typical pace.
Yeah, I agree with that,
actually. Their dates, while they have been like those adventurous bachelor type, they've had wonderful conversations.
Yeah.
And I think that Tayshia does have, because she's been married, been divorced, went through the process of figuring out how she felt about religion and divorce.
She's a little older too, right? She's like 28.
Yeah, she's 28, which is hilarious to be like, she's older.
Yeah. 5 years make a difference though.
But they do. In your 20s, they do. Oh my God. And look, I've met 28-year-olds that are less mature than some 23-year-olds that I've met. I don't think that age is always indicative of maturity by any means. And we don't know these women well enough, but whatever. So Hannah G and Tayshia get roses. So it's between Cassie and Kailyn. And at this point, it's between like the vanilla with chocolate chip Virginia date and this date where the dad basically was like, no. And Cassie's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And he gives the rose to Cassie, which.
Okay.
To me, he really wants it to work with her.
Yes, that to me is a very clear indication that he wants Cassie to be the one with him in the end, because if 3 out of 4 have shared how they're feeling with you, and it's all very positive, and the word love has been used, all 3, in equivalent exchange on both sides, then one's not. If you were to look at that in terms of gambling odds, you'd probably not want to put your money on the long shot. But if he's keeping her around, clearly he's either so incredibly physically attracted to her that he cannot possibly say no to denying the fantasy suite, or he has some intense emotions, which is both possible.
I think it's both. I do think it's both.
It is both, because he does the double butt grab every time they see each other. Every time they kiss, he's like immediately hands down.
I also think that, based on what I've heard from other people, past contestants talking about the fantasy suites, they actually get into a lot of conversation that
like real talk.
Yeah. Rachel Lindsay talked about how she talked with her final 2 or 3 about their credit scores and, things that you wouldn't necessarily want to air out on national TV, but are important if you're looking to. Now, that wasn't important to me, but for some of us, that's important. Right. And so
I think
I do think that wanting that off camera time, whether it is physical in nature or emotional and intellectual intimacy, is totally warranted and makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I get that.
So Kailyn says something very strange.
Yeah.
To Cassie when she gets eliminated.
And the problem that I have with it more than anything, and I'll let you say what it is. The problem that I have with it is that it, in a really uncomfortable way, shows Katie, Kirpa, Demi, Tayshia may have been kind of right about some stuff, and it's a really weird situation.
Kailyn turns to Cassie and says...
And Nicole. And Onyanka. Oof.
No, that was a different...
Yeah, they threw out names, though. They said that there was other women in the house, and they got pulled in by, collateral.
Oh.
Uh-oh. So continue.
So Kailyn says to Cassie, I love you. Goodbye, friend. Get engaged. And then they walk out. She does not say goodbye to Tayshia or
Hannah
G. And Colton says, I don't even know what to say.
So they don't say anything, and they just hug for 20 minutes.
She cries. I did appreciate the fact that she was feeling her feelings in terms of she did lean into the sadness and not go to anger.
Can I acknowledge something about how she cried in a way that I'm very impressed is an odd word to use, but so she's crying, obviously has a gallon of makeup on her face, and her mascara begins to run. But I've seen your mascara run, it gets everywhere. I don't know what she was doing.
Pageant.
But that's that pageant skill. She's gone.
Yeah.
And I was expecting it to be and then she runs her hand over her head. I thought it was gonna be smeared on her forehead. No, gone. I do not understand where her mascara kept going, because she wiped it off 3 or 4 times. Gone. No smudges on her face. It never had.
It was pretty talented.
I kept seeing that and I was like, how does she keep doing that? And then
so she goes home. And
ugh.
Colton, the episode ends with Colton asking Chris Harrison if they can talk, which is so fucking ominous. And I was like, what are they going to talk about? And then they're like, next week. And I'm like, fuck you, Chris Harrison.
When in reality, Chris Harrison are walking away, and Colton's looking over. He's like, hey, man, think I could jump that fence? Maybe. Here's
so go ahead.
Well, I was going to get into the car ride home.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, because I'm going to talk about next week.
Okay, so before we get to next week, Caelyn's car ride home.
What was that?
Try to inhale and talk simultaneously. Don't do that.
I mean, that's usually
you talk and then inhale and talk. You don't do the same at the same time.
Oh.
Anyway, so there's been criticism around Cassie and Caelynn for maybe they're not here for the right reasons. We heard a lot about it in the last couple of weeks. And one of the criticisms is that they are there to be the Bachelorette. They want to get high ranked on the show, perform well, show themselves in a really good light, get a good edit, and then go on to be the Bachelorette. And Caelyn's exit interview in the car did nothing to argue otherwise, and in fact convinced the fuck out of me that all she wants to do is be the Bachelorette at this point, because she did all the classics. No one will ever love me. Every time I try, I get hurt. Maybe I'm unlovable. Stupid. I don't want to see her as the Bachelorette. I don't think she has enough, like, not value, but like she's not interesting enough. She doesn't have enough like going on to carry an entire show on her own. And I think that it seems very orchestrated and planned in the way that she carried herself at the end of this episode. It was like she was like, okay, hold on, I'm not going to go on any longer. Okay, now time to move into plan C, which I really think is plan A, in my opinion.
It did feel a little bit that way, giving her the benefit of the doubt.
Absolutely.
I do think that it's an incredibly emotional rose ceremony. The two rose ceremonies, so the one after Hometowns and then the one after Fantasy Suites. Those two are fucking torturous. Like, yeah. I cannot imagine being in that position, because in one way, so the first one, you've introduced them to your whole family, and then the next one, you've either had sex or fooled around or told them about your credit score. Like, you've become more intimate with that person. And so letting you go after those things is so much more personal than letting somebody go week 4, where you're just like, we don't really have a connection. Bye. Yeah. Like, that's not easy, but it doesn't feel deeply personal. Yeah. This is a personal thing. Like, he wants to be with other people more than you. Yeah. And that's challenging.
Well, it's the way it all happened. Obviously, it's all edited and cut together. And we don't know how long that she was leaning on him, crying, whatever. It just seemed very poised.
It did. Now, I do think that that's the pageant piece coming in, though.
Absolutely. I also think she was taking some time to not be asked questions by him, not show her face to the camera, and to think about how she was going to proceed moving forward.
Oh, interesting.
I think that was very strategic. Because if you've seen how other people at this point of the show have reacted to being cut, they're usually pretty pissed. Yeah. They're like, I told you I was falling in love with you. I told you this. You came to my family's house, and now you do this to me? Like, there was nothing. It was just the script that usually gets people to be the person in the next season. I, for one, will be a little bummed if it's her.
We'll see. We said that about Colton, too.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. Very fair. If Kailyn does the amount of self-work that Colton has done, then she gets my approval.
Okay. I appreciate
So you got a year of therapy, and then we can talk.
So then we get to the preview for next week. And gotta tell ya, kind of threw me off because, as you know, since you're... Yeah, because it's 2 nights, and we didn't know it's 2 nights.
Coming up, a 2-night event. Surprise,
Literally,
it's a shit show.
You guys, I paused it. It was like a 2-night event, and I paused it, and I looked at Kyle, and I was like, I didn't mark that off in our calendar. So
we're going to rearrange how our the episodes around those episodes go.
I think
our episodes around those episodes.
I think what we'll end up doing, and we'll confirm this with you guys, is we'll do our normal time on Tuesday to talk about the Fantasy Suite episode, and then we'll do a special show on Wednesday to talk about the Women Tell All on Tuesday. Yep. But we'll see. We'll confirm that.
And it looks like a shit show.
Monday night, Fantasy Suites, we finally get the fence jump, which at this point, I'm like...
I don't even care.
I mean, I do. I'm not going to lie. I still care.
Like, I want to see it. No, of course, I want to see it. But I'm also like, I don't think it'll be anywhere near as good as I want it to be. So I'm already like, who cares? Yeah, I'm killing my expectations as soon as I have them.
I'm ready. I'm excited. And then Tuesday night is the Women Tell All. Yep. I do think that both of these nights are going to give us, as viewers, a lot of clarity around the drama between, like, are they ready or not? And
the teaser was just Demi yelling at people.
Well, no, those were all clips from the show. So they haven't filmed. All of those clips were not from the filming of Women Tell All. That was all footage.
All right.
That was all footage from the season. All of it. They did not have any clip of the Women Tell All because the Women Tell All has not filmed yet.
Okay.
So when that films, we will start getting previews of when that's going on.
Got it.
And I know that for a fact.
All right. Well, good.
So that is next week. We're very excited. We will be with you twice. And then we end the episode with one of the most uncomfortable.
Oh, this is when we learned about Hannah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we learned a new thing about Hannah. So,
and then we'll wrap.
Before this, here's what I knew about Hannah. She's from Alabama. She has an Instagram account, which means she has an email address. That's what I know about Hannah. And this blooper that felt... You know how when you see a car accident and you can't look away? That's kind of what this was like. This was not enjoyable. I felt very uncomfortable. And I wanted so badly to turn the TV off, and yet my thumb wouldn't hit the button. It's like, no, you need to see this. So they're at dinner, and someone mentions rapping. And Colton's like, what? And Hannah looks at him dead serious, and she's like, oh, yeah, I've been rapping for like 10 years. And Colton's like...
freestyling, I think she says.
No, she says rapping.
Oh, she said
but then,
rapping?
Yeah, and then proceeds to freestyle. So, okay, I have my issues here, because Colton's like, okay, okay? And even my reaction was like, okay, this seems to be like more information. And then she stands up and decides to freestyle at this like 20-person dinner, and she goes, someone give me a beat. And... no one can. If you say that you have been rapping for 10 years and your family all know about it, then someone's got to be able to produce a beat in some way, shape, or form, and they weren't able to, which gives me... I'm just confused by it. And now we know that Hannah can sort of freestyle, but who cares? I don't. Shoulder shrug emoji.
It was so bad.
It was really uncomfortable. And the people who gave her a beat was her dad and Colton, and it was bad.
It was
both.
so bad.
So that's been this episode of The Right Reasons. Thank you so much for watching. If you're still watching with YouTube, and you're amazing for watching with us.
This is the most amount of people we have ever had on live with us, and I am so thrilled that you have all been here. So say hi. Let us know where you're tuning in from. And again, we want to know your favorite and least favorite hometown dates.
Sounds good. And if you're a podcast listener, thank you so much for spending the time with us, and drop a review or a rating or a comment. We'd love to hear what you think.
Come hang out with us on Instagram.
And YouTube.
We love it there.
We do.
All right, guys. Thank you. This has been episode 8 of The Right Reasons.
Bye-bye.
We'll see you next week after the fence jump.
Oh, God.
Ah!